We spent a whole series talking about Cyprus, so let me say something slightly inconvenient. Cyprus is not always the answer. Neither is Delaware or Estonia or the UAE or Singapore. Founders love asking one question: where should I open my company? But in practice, the country is rarely the first question. The first question is: where does your business actually live? Because a company can be incorporated on paper very quickly. Your founder, your decisions, your customers, your team, your bank, your IP, your investors do not move that easily.
Jurisdiction shopping usually starts with a short list of attractive features: lowest tax rate and fastest incorporation, cheapest annual maintenance with a popular visa, famous IP regime in a country that everyone on X seems to be talking about this month. And none of those things are irrelevant, but they are features. They are not a business model. A tax rate does not tell you whether your bank will understand the company. Fast incorporation does not tell you whether the structure fits your customers. A visa does not tell you where you personally become tax resident, and an investor-friendly country does not automatically make your cap table, contracts, or reporting investor ready. The mistake here is choosing the country before you map the business. Every business has a center of gravity. Sometimes it is one country. Often it is 3 or 4. The founder lives in one place. The team works from 2 others. Customers are mostly in the EU. The main account is somewhere else. The IP is developed by contractors across borders, and the next investor wants a structure they already understand. That is why the real job is not to start with a flag, it is to map the gravity of the business. Where does the founder live? Where are the real decisions made? Who are the customers? Where does the team work? Where does the money come from, and where does it need to go? Where is the IP created? And what will the next investor, buyer, or bank expect to see? Only after that do countries start making sense.
So what actually decides whether a jurisdiction fits? You should look at 7 things. First, founder residence and management. Where do you live and where are the important decisions really made? A company certificate in one country does not erase the reality of management somewhere else. Second, customer geography. A B2B SaaS company selling mostly to EU enterprise buyers has different friction from a consumer app, a US-facing startup, or a regulated fintech. Third, banking and revenue flows. A company that is cheap to incorporate but painful to operate financially is not a cheap company. Fourth, team and substance. Where do people work? Where are contracts signed? Where does the real activity happen? Fifth, IP and R&D. An attractive IP regime matters only if the ownership, development, contract, costs, and evidence actually line up. Sixth, inventors and exit. Some inventors accept familiar structures. Others care less about the flag and more about whether the structure is clean, explainable, and easy to diligence. Seventh, reporting and compliance cost. The cheapest company to open can be the most expensive company to maintain. This is the part founders often skip because it doesn't fit into a comparison table with one tax number.
Here's the simplest way to see the problem. Imagine 2 founders building almost the same SaaS product. Founder A lives in Europe, sells mostly to EU companies, has a distributed team, wants a manageable operating structure, and did not have a plan to raise US venture capital next year. Founder B, though, sells mainly to the US, is preparing for a serious venture round, expects US investors, and may eventually build a US team. Same product category and subscription model, but totally different jurisdiction logic. Now add a third founder. They live in one country, manage the company from another, have devs in 2 more, and of course want to use an IP regime somewhere else. And now, the question, which country is best, has become almost meaningless. Best for what, for whom, and at which stage of the company. This is why jurisdiction choice is not a ranking, it is a fit problem. And this is where the classic traps appear. Trap 1. Digital does not mean frictionless, Estonian e-residency can make administration convenient, but it does not magically move your personal tax residence or make every other cross-border issue disappear. Trap 2. Fast incorporation does not mean zero reporting. A foreign founder can open a US entity quickly and still face information filing obligations they never expected. For foreign-owned US disregarded entities, the IRS can require Form 5472 with a pro forma Form 1120, and the failure to file penalty starts at $25,000. Trap 3. Reputation comes with local requirements. Singapore is a respected business jurisdiction, but a local company still needs at least one director who meets local residency rules. Trap 4. A tax regime is not a sticker. A good IP regime does not help if the IP ownership, development work, contracts, and evidence tell 4 different stories. Trap 5. A visa and a company are not the same plan. You can solve mobility and accidentally create a tax residence problem, or solve company registration and still have no clean answer for how the business is actually managed. Every trap has the same root cause. The founder chose one attractive feature and treated it as the whole structure. So instead of asking which country is best, build a fit matrix, not a ranking, not a top 10, an exact proper matrix for your business. Start with 6 columns: tax, banking, substance, investors, operations, and compliance. Then score each jurisdiction against the way the business actually works. Where is the obvious fit and where is the hidden friction? What can be solved with normal administration and what is a real deal breaker here? A good jurisdiction does not have to win every column. It has to avoid losing the columns that matter most to your company. For one founder, banking may be the deal breaker, and for another, investor expectations. For another, substance cost, but for another, personal tax residence. That is why the same country can be brilliant for one founder and completely wrong for another. A better process is simple. Step 1 is mapping the business. Founder residence, management and customers, team, money, and investors, and IP, of course. Step 2 is to define the non-negotiables. Do you need EU credibility or maybe US investor familiarity, easy remote administration or an actual relocation route, maybe a specific IP model or a low complexity structure your team can actually maintain? Step 3, shortlist 2 or 3 jurisdictions, not 10, and not whatever is trending right now, just the ones that have to survive the real business map. Step 4, test the structure before you register it, run the story through the bank, accountant, tax residence logic, investor, the actual team, and the customer contract. If the story changes depending on who asks, the structure is not ready, and only then register the company.
This is also how we think about jurisdiction work at Icon.Partners. We start with your needs and situation. Where you live, where the decisions happen, who pays the company, where the team works, what the bank needs to understand, what the next investor may expect, and how much compliance the business can realistically support. Then we build the structure around that reality. Company setup, tax logic, banking, relocation, substance, reporting. The point of our work is not to create the most impressive diagram. We aim at creating a structure you can actually operate, explain, and maintain. The best jurisdiction is not the country with the lowest tax rate. It is not the fastest registration. And it is not the country everyone is posting about this month. It is the place where the structure matches the reality of the business. A structure you can explain to a bank, to an investor, to a customer, to a tax authority, and to your own team without changing the story every time. So, before you choose the country, map the business.